Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Prue.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl Andy.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summit.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
That's beautiful.
Right on, man. This is Blyss. You're listening to the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yeah. His mama named him Ted Gould. He's better known with a bass in his hand as Blyss, for the feeling that he spreads throughout crowds wherever he goes. And, man, thank you for coming on the show today.
Dude, thanks for having me, man.
I saw you the other night at the Hotel Utah.
Yes, sir.
With Dale. D. Edward, that's right.
Yes, sir.
Here's the amazing thing that I really enjoyed about that show. D doesn't care. He will throw a show with a band that has not played together in a year and a half. How long had it been since you guys played? About a year and a half. You guys didn't have a rehearsal. You hadn't played together in a year and a half. You just made phone calls. Everybody came together.
Yes, sir.
And you guys held it down.
And my car got hit by a bus that night, too.
Really?
Yeah. We have to talk about that later, though, because I'm still trying to get these folks to pay for my door.
Yeah, that's another story. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So the thing about that show the other night was it featured two other alums who have been three other alums of the show. Of course, Dee's been on the show. Rich was on the show. And Leah Ticey was on the show. And Benjamin hasn't been on the show yet, but he's coming.
He's coming.
The thing about those performers is that there's never a doubt. And even with the way that Dee operates in his spontaneity, there was never a doubt.
Word up.
You know?
Word up.
It was fun to see that the band that went on after you guys stuck around and watched. And in a lot of ways, they were a younger band, but they were watching the veterans just do it. And everybody knew that you guys hadn't been together in a long time, and they were all looking at each other. You know that look, and we, as young musicians, we gave each other that look. When you were looking at a band that was doing it, you look at your partners and be like, hey. We rehearsed 9 times this week, and these guys haven't rehearsed in a year and a half, and here they are laying it down. It's fun playing with that group of folks, is it not?
It's great. But see, if I could touch on that, I mean, so any one of those people that's walking outside, would you need to have to practice your lines if you want to have a conversation with them about anything?
Well, it depends. If I had an objective, I probably would want to brush up on a few things, but I see some nice people walking by, and I bet I could just walk up and, let's say, talk to her about whatever that kombucha tea is.
Let's say
this guy right here with the kid,
right.
I could talk to him about that kid.
Right.
Cute kid. He's got the world by the tail, his future ahead of him. He can do whatever he wants. His dad clearly loves him. We could talk about that all day.
Well, word up. But what I'm saying is, like, if we assume that you both speak English, you know what I mean?
Right.
Now, if he spoke a different language, you might have to, have to practice up on that, maybe.
Right, maybe.
You know what I'm saying? But if you both speak English, I mean, my whole point is that with music, when people understand, and we were talking a little bit about this the other day, was if we all speak music, then we don't have to get together necessarily and rehearse. There's certain things that, little signals or whatever, you might have noticed Richie on one of the videos, Richie giving me a signal, but we both knew what that meant. So, you know what I mean? I think
2 down, 1 up.
Yeah, you remember, that was exactly it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's fun, but like Richie, anytime I get to play with Richie, he's got everything he does sounds like a season.
He's my favorite drummer.
Oh, man.
I got a lot of favorite drummers. I say this 1,000 times on this show. Oh, this guy's my favorite drummer. Sometimes I say about, I'm sure you got a lot of influences as well on your instrument. Yeah. But I have said a bunch of times, Tony Thompson, my favorite drummer. J.R. Robinson is my favorite drummer. Stuart Copeland, my favorite drummer. But I announced unequivocally at the beginning of episode 70, which was Rich's episode, that I'm saying for the record right now, my favorite drummer is Rich.
Rich is
the dude is bad.
He's a bad
and yes, as bad as he is, the thing that I know we both love about him is that he manages to say the perfect thing at the perfect time. Yep. It's just like somebody who speaks the language beautifully, a poet who has a great way with brevity. Mm-hmm. He has incredible chops. Mm-hmm. And doesn't need them because he just wants to say what's perfect. And what I noticed about him and what he says about you and what I notice about the whole ensemble is the reason that the conversation works is because everybody wants to hear what everyone else has to say.
Yes, sir.
And values what everyone else has to say. Yeah. So that is a wonderful thing to see. And if our listeners are, kind of spun around going, yeah, I know what I like. I love me some, insert your favorite band here. What I will challenge everybody to listen for is probably what you don't even realize you like about your favorite band is how everybody props each other up and then gets out of each other's way. And that was fun to watch the other night, man.
I want to touch on that, what you're saying. Like, my favorite musicians are giving on stage. And I've played with cats, man. As a side man, I've played with folks that have also, you feel like it's maybe a competition thing, or they, may put themselves on I don't like playing in that kind of stuff, and thankfully I'm not in those situations very often anymore. But when people are just giving on stage, there's another guy in the area named Bryant Mills who comes to mind. I don't know if you know Bryant, but he also... it's just giving his energy, his smiles. And even when he's not smiling, there's always a feeling of encouragement. You know what I'm saying? And, we all out there, man. It's like that game you played when you were a kid and you fall back and you expect somebody to catch you. That's how it is every time you're on stage. And when D. Edward is on stage, he's not going to just do that with people he can't trust.
Right.
You know what I mean? He can trust us.
Because he will stage dive.
Yeah, he will.
At any time.
He don't care.
He will do anything at any time.
He don't care.
And when you have a supporting cast that will, I would say probably a good 4 or 5 times that night, he would just look over his shoulder and go, okay, I'm going to take a leap right here. I need you to show me where one is when I land because I'm spinning around in a circle. And
yes, sir.
That's what we love about him.
Yes, sir.
I should mention to our audience that you are a Bay Area transplant, originally from New Orleans, my favorite city.
Yes, sir.
And you came out here, and the odd thing, what I think is hilarious, is that you had to move out here to play with Zigaboo Modeliste, who also had to move out here to play with you.
Yeah, man. I didn't even know Zig in New Orleans.
That's funny.
I didn't know my homie Daryl Anders, as you know, played with Zig for, 10 years, something like that. And I got a funny, can I tell you the story?
Please.
I was going to move to Austin.
Okay.
And I bought a ticket to Austin, and somewhere around that time, the singer called me, and she was like, I want you to do this wedding, and it was a high-paying gig. And I was like, dang, that's right around the time when I'm supposed to go to Austin and go check it out, right?
Let me just stay one more weekend.
Well, what she did was she was like, I'm going to change your flight and all that and take care of you, and, you know what I'm saying, you can play the wedding.
Make it convenient for you to stay.
Right, make it convenient for you to stay. So when I came back, I was going to be doing a theater run of West Side Story. Okay. Right, so this plays in. So rehearsals for that are also going on. Then I get this phone call. Hey, Blyss, this is Zigaboo. Anybody know? Have you ever got a phone call from Zig?
Oh, man.
You know that's how he leaves a message. And I'm like, dang it, he's going to ask me to do a gig when I'm not here. Turns out, I can't remember exactly how it worked out, but it turns out it was like right the night before I left from the change flight.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So here's the deal, though. I couldn't make any rehearsals.
Oh.
I was like, I can do the gig, but I just can't because I had the West Side Story thing that was just starting to, you know what I mean? We were just starting to do the first orchestra rehearsals and stuff like that, and that's a complicated show. And so long story short, Zig did not hear me play until sound check the night of the gig.
Let me take an aside with our listeners. Okay, so for those of you who don't know who Zigaboo Modeliste is, he's my hero. Don't let Rich hear you say that. He is my hero. He is the funkiest. You should look him up. He was in a band called The Meters, and there's all kinds of funky get down on the get down that you can hear Zig play on.
Yeah.
So now, how do you get a call from Zig, a living legend, and he says, "Oh, you can't make any of my rehearsals? Okay, I'll see you the night of the gig."
So Zig we had met before, we had met at Daryl's birthday party and, different things. I had gone to some gigs and stuff like that. So we kind of knew each other.
Okay, you weren't strangers.
We weren't absolute strangers. And then I did have a fairly high recommendation from Daryl. Also,
who would know?
He would know. And being from New Orleans was a plus as well. And I said, "Zig, I can't make no rehearsals, but I'm funky." And he said, "We'll see." And he said it just like that. He said, "We'll see."
That's like a personal dare.
Oh, yeah. But here's the thing, man. And these are songs, some of these songs I had grown up with. I mean, these are New Orleans standards,
right.
You know what I mean? But I shed them like I had never heard them before. Mm-hmm. I shed them like this was going to be a career-defining gig. And it has been a career-defining gig.
Okay.
Because, to be a bass player in Zigaboo, he's one of the most sampled drummers in history.
Yep.
They just won a Lifetime Grammy Award, been nominated for Rock and Roll Hall of Fame three times.
Yep.
It's
an injustice that they're not in there. It's an injustice they didn't go in there in the very beginning.
It is. He's like one of those people, you may not know his name, but you've definitely heard his music. So
there are musicians who are great, and then there are musicians who are important.
Yeah.
And he's important.
He's important. And you can't be you can't be a drummer. You can't be a drummer and not be familiar. It's like me saying that I'm not familiar with Jaco Pastorius.
Right.
Almost.
I'm a bass player, but I don't know if I've heard that name. No.
Right.
You can't.
Maybe Jaco. Because Jaco, a lot of people know Jaco, and maybe he's not at that. But he's important in a way that if you play drums on a serious level, if you're in a rhythm section on a serious level,
you have to get there at some point.
You gotta know that stuff.
Yeah.
You gotta know that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I would put him up there with maybe James Jamerson. And
absolutely.
That call for that gig, it does make you say, "Oh boy, this has got real."
Yeah.
And I got to go in the shed.
Most stuff.
Yeah.
Most stuff. And I got there and there was, and I was nervous, and at one point, and he's got a guitar player who I love to death now. It didn't start off that way, but he's awesome. He's incredible. Chris Rosbach is incredible. And he's got bionic ears, and so if there was something wrong, you know what I'm saying, and I kept getting them, I kept nailing them, and then there's one part, people say, watch me butcher it now. I kind of butchered it a little bit, but that was the line. He was like, "You got this," but I knew that was one that I was
the ears were going to be perked up,
that I was going to have. You know what I'm saying? But Zig, he bends down underneath the rise, and he said, "You sound like a bad mother." And I was like, all right. And it's been since 2012, you know what I mean? It's like Funk University.
Man.
It's Funk University, yeah.
Since 2012?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Your calling in life is to spread joy in the world. And I think
that's my calling.
Your name is Blyss, for crying out loud. With the ability to spread joy in the world with your instrument, that's the greatest gift that artists can give, is to give of themselves and their art. But maybe just as good of a gift is that you are a music teacher.
I am.
Tell me what you're doing in terms of music education. What are you teaching?
I teach two I call them electric ensembles. They're listed on the course catalog as rock and R&B bands, where I teach electric ensembles at a place called Cova Conservatory.
Wow.
Which is housed on the Merritt College campus.
Okay.
I also teach music theory there. And for 5 or 6 years, I taught K through 5 general music.
Crazy.
Yeah, with an great organization on the peninsula called Music for Minors.
Huh.
So essentially I was like a docent and just kind of roving music teacher, went around to schools.
How long ago were you an elementary music teacher?
I stopped doing elementary 2 years ago.
Okay, so it's still possible that some of those students may wander over and catch you again at
absolutely.
College.
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, over here at the Castro Valley School of Music, I'm going to be doing some elementary camps in June. But, what's interesting, how things come full circle for, music kind of got introduced to me in that setting.
Okay.
In a circle in a fourth grade class where, a woman with an afro who had a song on the radio, I remember, she came in and she, brought percussion instruments.
You remember who it was?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I just always remember the afro.
Yeah.
And I was a kid, it was the 70s, man. You know what I'm saying? So I'm a kid from a broken home. Like that seemed to be an epidemic at the time.
Yeah.
And so I was that, kind of shy, kid, a little bit of a
Trying to figure it out.
Trying to figure it out, man. I don't want to, but she came in and I remember she asked who wanted to join the band. She had a more advanced band, and she asked me and my cousin. My cousin got snare drum, I got trumpet, and like a week later, my cousin quit. And, you know what I mean?
Left you hanging in there.
He did, man. But I was like, well, if you go, I'll go. You know what I mean? And then shortly after that, I heard Prince for the first time.
Well, his job was just to push the boat away from shore.
Yeah.
And then you heard Prince.
Yeah, and then I heard Prince, and I was
How
like,
old were you?
I'm stuck. I might have been 1980.
1980?
Yeah, because it was Uptown.
It was Dirty Mind.
Dirty Mind. I want to say about 10 years old.
And it was Uptown that did it to you.
It was Uptown. I was like, and just the picture that he painted, in that black, white, Puerto Rican, everything, just that whole, utopian imagery, you know what I mean, was just cool to me. So.
Well, I know that we're not alone and that it's a pretty common thing to say, but I love Prince, man, and I know that he shaped a lot of people's early formation of where music took you. I don't think it's fair to say, well, I became a musician because of Prince, because clearly you became a musician because you've always been a musician. You just didn't know it yet.
Right.
And then when you got there, though, you saw that he had kind of cut a path for you. And I think he's done that for a lot of us. One of the things that I love about his music of that particular era was because he was doing it all. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but he was so doggone bad that he made it accessible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Young cats like us would hear the music and think, wow, I can emulate that part. Yeah. Whatever the part was, and he was playing them all, so no matter which part it was. Did you ever have the experience of going to see Prince live with your band and leaving the auditorium and all your bandmates looked at each other like, that boy just whooped me on my instrument? You
know what, man? I saw Prince, first time I saw him was at the Superdome for the Purple Rain World Tour.
Okay.
And I can't hide my age ever now, you know, but and I saw him countless times after that, and it was always, always this conversation of damn.
How many times did you say, that was even better than the last time I saw him?
A lot.
The last time I saw him, that was the best show I'd ever seen.
And I tell you what, man, the last time I saw him at the Coliseum was sold out. The last time he played in Oakland, piano and a mic tour, and
just before he passed.
Yeah, and I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget because it was a pretty tough day, you know what I mean? And we went to the concert, and I usually would go to Prince concerts, and I have to be like on the floor in the in the thick of things. But the older you get, you're just like, nah, I can sit down. It's okay. So, but when you go to the Coliseum and the lights are really bright back all the way up at the top in the chorus, because I was up there polishing the lights. You know what I mean?
Getting the dust off.
Getting the dust off, you know what I mean? And the sound, I remember the sound at first was really bad. And then it was so bad that it was like, man, are you serious? And then it got better, and then it got better, and it got better. And I don't know if the sound got better or if it was just him making everyone feel as though they were in his living room.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, and then I shared with everyone I could, I said, there's not an artist alive today that could do that. And somebody tried to say, you're Stevie Wonder. I'm like, you'd get through 45 minutes of Stevie Wonder by himself, not taking anything away from his genius. But this man, Prince, played for a few hours.
Long as he wanted.
Long as he wanted.
Yeah.
3 encores. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous, and it was joyous, and it was. And just when he passed, like everybody else, man, especially now that it's April, it's tough, man. It's tough. That was my superhero, man. Mm-hmm. That was my Batman, my Superman. That was everybody to me. You know what I mean? And there were times. I won't go on and on about Prince, but there were times in my life when I had to say, when you write a report, who do you admire or something like that. And he would be at the top of the list above people that maybe should have been on that list or should have been definitely had a higher place on the list.
Maybe.
So,
Maybe. Let's say this. There were other people on the list who had more obvious contributions.
Let's say that.
And that's not to say that they were more. I mean, look at the number of people he has moved and the way that he has moved them. That's just a less obvious contribution, but a contribution nonetheless.
Absolutely.
I would say, as a force in the universe for good, he did a lot of it. I remember the Love Sexy tour. I happened to be sitting I had the seat right next to the board. Mm-hmm. And Stevie Wonder was in there.
Wow.
And I was like, man, these seats are not that great. He should be up front where he could see. Never mind.
You cold-blooded.
But that was my thought. I mean, for some reason I was like, you would think a celebrity would have closer seats. And it had nothing to do with Stevie in particular.
You cold.
But here's
I saw this.
Here's how I'm trying to get you to drop the subject. Is that also at that show was Bonnie Raitt?
Okay, yeah.
And he acknowledged her, and she was way up front. Like you would think, like a celebrity would call and say, "Hey, I'm in town. I'd like to see Prince." Oh, well, let's put you right where you could, Yeah. Anyway. But Stevie was right where he wanted to be.
I saw a meme that said it had Stevie Whatley said, "The last time I saw Prince," and then it said, "The last time you did what?" That's cold-blooded. All right, I'm gonna get off this now.
Okay,
Stevie's a genius, man.
Genius.
But I wouldn't have watched him for 3 hours by himself, though.
Well, who knows? If he gave you 3 hours.
Maybe if it was me, maybe if it was like in his hotel room,
in his actual living room,
something like that. But not. I mean, you got to understand, bro.
But your point though about his sound not being great at the beginning, it's possible that you're right. It didn't change at all, and what changed was your perspective and his ability to just draw you down.
Yeah. It was joy, man. It was straight joy.
Yeah,
it was straight joy. So.
And to see him just on the piano or just on the guitar.
Just on anything.
Yeah,
he was a bad dude, man.
Mm-hmm.
Bad dude.
Yeah, he was cold.
Yeah.
So, as you started to come into your own as a musician, who else were you listening to?
I was really influenced by the Minneapolis sound as a whole.
Yeah.
Even growing up in New Orleans.
Well, we all were, man. I was here in the Bay Area while you were growing up in New Orleans.
Right. And I mean, it was really, really heavy here in the Bay Area also.
That is true.
Very, very, I mean, especially with all the people from the Bay Area in his band.
He would come here to Mine Talent. But
exactly.
Before, let's see, when he came here to Mine Talent was around Sign of the Times, right? So prior to that,
even before that, like Eddie M., Sheila, I mean, there's still a lot of folks, a lot of Bay Area influence. And you think, like Levi and Miko and all those guys, you think they just came on the scene around Sign of the Times, but they had kind of been around for a while, kind of hovering. Because, you don't get into those things.
Yeah, that didn't immediately start.
No, man, you got to be hanging around and playing in the auxiliary bands and all of that stuff. First.
Yeah, and he would come out here and hang out.
Yeah,
and watch people, Bonnie Boyer and such.
Yep.
So with his influence and the bass players that played with him, Andre Simone,
Brown Mart, Rhonda Smith.
Oh, Rhonda Smith.
Rhonda Smith was, Rhonda Smith is, I mean, she's like I don't know, man. She's like a gangster to me.
You know what is cold-blooded to me, and she's bad?
Yeah.
The End of Savior. Oh, that is so tough.
Yeah. I think when Rhonda came on, Rhonda brought a definite jazz background, a definite jazz influence to his music, whereas
That fit right in.
That fit right in, but I mean, you could tell when certain people started to come around and bring a more, I hate to say sophisticated vibe, but back when we were, there's a lot of you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But you could definitely hear a different kind of sophistication in Rhonda's playing.
Yeah. It was a more mature voice that had matured by itself and come to the party already matured. Yeah, I know what you mean. I really liked Levi's playing on the bass, but I was really, really happy when he moved to guitar because I loved his guitar playing so much.
I just did some stuff with Levi last summer, which was a real trip for me.
Yeah,
because there were songs that I thought I knew. And he'd be like, "Hand me your bass."
Oh man,
hand me your bass. Hand me your bass. I did. Levi got me on the Jody Whatley gigs.
Okay.
I toured a little bit with her last summer. But Levi's he's an interesting dude, man. I mean, that guy's just got so he's also got a very specific kind of funk. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I just just sitting there watching him is just like, you know what I mean? Or being in the same room with him is just like, damn, that's funk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put down the sticks, man, I put down the sticks and raised my kids and didn't realize that I left the sticks down so long. And then I found myself at Dwayne's house. And we were hanging out, and he goes, "What are you guys doing later?" And we're like, well, "Nothing." And he said, "Well, Levi's coming over. Do you know Levi?" And I was like, "No, but I like to meet Levi." And he said, "Oh, you should hang around."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay." So we actually went out and got some Wingstop because he's over there by that Wingstop.
Yeah.
And then we came back, and Levi was there, and they were setting up, and Leah was there that night. That was the night I met Leah.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm hanging back, and whoever was playing drums that night, it was a rehearsal, and he was running late, and Juan was there, and Juan pointed at me and went, "He plays the drums."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh shit, that just happened." And Levi goes, "Okay, well, go play the drums." And I didn't want to say, "Man, I haven't held a pair of drumsticks in 15 years."
Yeah.
Because you don't say such things.
Right.
And I just went up there and thought, well, I'm not going to take a solo. I'm just going to lay this down.
Yeah.
And that's all I did. And I felt like he made me play.
Yeah.
And then, then I thought, well, I need to pick sticks back up. Yeah. So he made me pick sticks back up, which is great.
Yeah.
Juan actually made me pick sticks back up.
Yeah.
But the feeling that he emanates, and he wasn't even playing, he was MDing. He didn't even have a guitar in his hand. But he just exudes music in a very unique way. He has not been on the show. Levi, come on, man. Come on.
And return my phone calls, too. Levi, bad with returning the text, boy.
Call Blyss back.
Call me back, man.
So we are here in Castro Valley in this pretty cool performing arts space that I can't figure out in the most beautiful way, because there are books, there are instruments, there's a piano over there, your bass rig is here, there are guitars and amps, and this is just a place to create or consume and enrich. Which one?
That's a little bit of everything, man. We call it this space, Small Town Society, smalltownsociety.com. You can check us out. It is a arts and advocacy space. Once a month we do gatherings here where we will highlight artists and advocacy groups in the area. It's just about doing the work, man. You know what I mean? Getting out and having a space for people to be heard.
This is cool.
Yeah.
There aren't spaces like this in every town.
No, especially not in Castro Valley. It's a new thing for Castro Valley.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
How long have you guys been here?
We've been here about a year now.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so
this is not exactly a cheap retail space that we're in. We're in a great location.
Yeah. We are. It's a blessing.
a great location in a beautiful building with exposed timbers and exposed brick.
Yep.
I mean, it's a really very creative, stimulating place.
Yep.
And you guys have decorated it sparsely and beautifully.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do a show with Paul and you, and we're going to talk about this space, but it's going to be its own show.
That would be awesome.
Today we're here to talk about Blyss. You have a project coming up that you're just going into the studio for next week.
I am. And it's interesting. When I took the name Blyss, I took it myself as a sort of a rebirth. You know what I mean? I was a younger man, kind of running away from some things, and my mother named me Theodore after my grandfather, and so the project is called the Brother Theodore Project, and it sounds like a guy raised in New Orleans, influenced by Minneapolis funk, with some Southern rock and jazz influences as well. It's just a chance for me to kind of get out from behind the sideman chair and have something with my own name on it.
Wow.
know? Yeah. So I'm excited about it. Why now, man? I love just being a part of helping people tell their stories with music.
Okay.
But sometimes
that's what makes you a great sideman.
Thank you.
What makes you emerge from the shadow?
Because I got my own stories to tell.
Okay.
There it is. There it is. And I think you look around at your life and sometimes you think, dang, man, is this all there is? You know what I mean? And then,
hold on. Really? I mean, let's say everybody goes through their own journey, but here you are, a man who has contributed to all kinds of, you say things like, I went on the road with Jody Whatley last summer. Mm-hmm. And these things just roll out because this is the way you live your life. You have a terrific space from which you create. You have a beautiful wife. You got a great life here in a town that's vibrant. You're making beautiful music with people who have wonderful things to say about you. At this point is when you decided, well, I think I should say something now, because really, is that how it happened?
I mean,
I'm kind of making fun of you a little bit, man, because you got the world by the tail and you're going to go say something like that.
No, I don't mean it. I definitely don't mean it to knock anything or anybody. I'm grateful, man. I am what I've always wanted to be.
Okay.
I am what I've always wanted to be. Uh-huh. And anybody who is a creative, right? Because I'm not just I don't just play music.
Play bass, yeah.
I'm a FAA certified drone pilot. You know what I mean? So I do like drone video and photography as well. So I'm a creative, and that doesn't always, it's not an easy life, right? But I'm happy that I have the life that I wanted, and I'm happy to create with all these people. The first time I played on stage with Jody Whatley, I remember I'm playing Still a Thrill, and I'm looking at her, and then I look over at Levi, and my homie, whose name is actually Prince as well, Prince Damons, he's playing keys, and I'm like, I remember when this song came out. I remember learning this song on bass when it came out.
And here you are playing it with Jody Whatley.
And here I am playing it with Jody Whatley, which was like, and playing it with Levi.
Right.
Levi, who had watched, on Sign of the Times, from as a kid, watching him, or with Zigaboo, man. You know what I'm saying? I play songs with Zigaboo that I remember, playing, hearing on the radio and stuff. And,
that formed your musical understanding.
That formed my musical understanding and my musical identity. Mm-hmm. Those things are blessings. And I don't, I don't want to say any of this in a way that sounds ungrateful. I got my own story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have definitely, those people are a part of my story. But, I've loved and lost, you know what I'm saying? I've got ideas. I just wrote this song, man. If I could talk about it for a
Please,
second.
man. It's your episode.
So I was going to do on the record was going to be a remake of a cover of Strawberry Letter 23.
Okay.
Because it's one of my favorite joints to play. And because I'm a bass player, it's not a bass record. There's bass playing on it, but it's not like, I'm singing and stuff like that. And
it's a record by a guy who happens to play the bass.
By record, yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? I want to tell stories. And so I have this kind of love-hate relationship with social media because I think we type stuff and we say stuff and it kind of stops there.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? And I'm like,
I hear you, man.
And then I started to post this, what I thought was this well-crafted, diatribe on gun control.
Okay.
And then I said, I can't post that. If I'm not, you know what I mean? Because what is that post going to do, right? Simultaneously,
you're going to get out and march next to TI. That's one thing.
That's one thing. But
it's another thing if you're going to just type it out.
All I'm going to do is just type it, and then simultaneously, man, I start getting the hearing on the news that there's an active shooter on the YouTube campus.
Right.
Well, this one young lady that I was in a band with for like 2.5 years. She works at that YouTube campus. Turns out she's 50 feet away from the shooter, crawling out on her. So anyway, about this post though. My thinking was, at least with me, was that if I don't do anything, if we don't do anything, then at some point we've all got a little bit of blood on our hands. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like, boom, right there, the song comes up, blood on my hands. And I started writing that all of a sudden replaced Strawberry Letter 23.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to hear a little bit?
Please.
I wonder if I could. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
If I sing this, is it gonna overload you?
Let's see. We're gonna find out.
I actually wrote it on piano, but we don't have to go over there. One of the criteria for this music was that I needed to be able to perform it with bass, piano, guitar, a looper, or whatever. I got blood on my hands. I got blood on my hands. I can type it on my Facebook or post it on Instagram, but I got blood on my hands. Armchair politics, superior positions, talking about a better life, just a hoping and a wishing. I got my bullhorn so I can scream my truth out loud, while the brother standing next to me gets lost off in the crowd. See, I got blood on my hands. I got blood on my hands. I can type it on my Facebook or post it on Instagram, but I got blood on my hands. To feed your lies, if you give enough ammunition, you only hear your own side if you fall prey to the algorithm. Another died on the schoolyard, but don't say that we don't care. We won't march on the boulevard, but we'll be sending up thoughts and prayers. See, I got blood on my hands. I got blood on my hands. Somebody hear me. I can type it on my Facebook, but it's more than I can stand. I got blood on my hands.
So that's beautiful.
Thanks, man.
That is beautiful. One of the things that I've noticed recently, because I've been listening with a much more critical ear around the folks in my life who write, is the difference in playing and in lyrics and in lyrical rhythms that has happened pretty recently. I mean, a more obvious example is just use of the word algorithm in your lyrics. Mm-hmm. That's that would not have been a lyric 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But the way that you play Sometimes It Snows in April, that was not it's become more common to have sophisticated hands like that. Would you say?
Yeah.
I mean, look at when we were kids, like you said, you were playing Let's Work and comparing it to Rhonda Smith.
Yeah.
So that same sort of the evolution of not just Prince's band, but our ears to be tuned to those things, and the expectation on instruments now to be more melodic, the bass especially. What do you think has happened in the last 15 years?
Well, I think like an instrument like the like the electric bass that has with people like Victor Wooten, particularly coming out and bringing it more. Jocko did it a certain way. Jocko definitely did it a certain way. I'm not taking anything away from him, but in this generation, Victor advancing it even more.
You're talking about as pioneers of melody,
and
chording on the bass.
You can still tell a certain story with this instrument. And when I was doing Sometimes It Snows in April, what was important for me was to pick out the melody is always king.
Yeah.
And I think that when I'm teaching, because I also teach bass as well, you should still be conscious of the melody. You should still understand the melody. The melody is king. The melody is always going to guide you. The melody is where the story is. If I could just touch on this for a second.
Come on, man.
The song Sometimes It Snows in April, you will recognize this. If you know Sheila E., if you know that sound. Is Toy Box from her Romance 1600 album.
Yeah.
It's the same melody.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a nursery rhyme. It's E major, right? And so what was important for me how can I play? This is what I was challenging myself with that night, is how can I play the melody and get the most important parts of the chord? So there it is, right? So without getting into a whole theory thing, right? There's that F sharp, right? Well, look, I can play that, and get, but trying to get that, and also have some of his vocal inflection in there as well, and giving it my own character. You know what I mean? How can I? But what I'm trying to work out now is that part, because it's such a it's one of those, you can hear it in his voice, man. It's all the heartbreak that you feel when you hear the song. Damn, I got excited just now.
Yeah.
Because he's so much more than Purple Rain. But anyway, but
perhaps my least favorite album, by the way.
Mine as well, and
that's saying something, because it's a more favorite album than 20,000 other albums that exist. But among his work, I think its popularity kind of soiled it for me, and that's terrible to say.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that.
You know this? Elvis Costello, Allison? I can't give away too much of the record, but this is on it too. Oh, it It's so funny to be seeing you after so long, girl. And with the way you look, I understand that you were not impressed. I heard you let that little friend of mine take off your party dress. I'm not gonna get too sentimental like those other sticky valentines. 'Cause I don't know if you were loving somebody. I only know it isn't mine. Allison, I know this world is killing you. Oh, Allison, my aim is true. I'll save the rest of it.
Come on,
because I'm just saying, like I want to be able to do all of this stuff with the bass.
Wow,
you know what I mean? As well.
That was beautiful.
Thanks, man.
That was beautiful.
Thank you, brother.
I like Elvis Costello. Okay. That was very, very moving, man.
I don't know much of I don't know much of his music, to be honest. But that's another one of the songs. So I'm playing around with the title of this record being 2027, which is the address of the house I grew up in. I grew up in a pink shotgun house in New Orleans, in the Treme.
All right.
Back when the Treme was 100%. Never mind.
Yeah.
I won't get into that gentrification talk. But it was one of those first songs I could remember hearing late night radio, with the black light on and thinking, damn, that's smooth. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Are you putting that on the record too?
I am.
Yeah, man.
I am.
And is it going to be a just you and the bass?
This particular song on the record is just me and bass.
Wow. Because that was very, very moving, man. That was an expression of that song that was very different from his, and had a very unique. I mean, you can't do it the same way that he did it, certainly, because it's his, one of his iconic songs.
Yeah.
But that came from different registers, and it came from melodically being the same is one thing, but that your bass accompaniment and the chording that you play brings a different voice to it. It makes it a different song.
Well, the bass kind of forces you to, your choices of notes, and the way that if you're going to play chords, in order not
they must be economic.
They got to be economic, and they can't. You don't want them to be muddy. So, they can get muddy real quick. That's an E major chord, but there's an E major 7. So I'm just changing it. Which same chord? Oh, sorry, that was an A. But they sound very different.
Yeah. Very interesting chording choice.
Yeah, some people say, well, is it harder to play a 4-string or a 5-string or a 6-string? And I'm like, well, would it be easier to drive your car if you had 4 wheels or 2 or 1? You know what I mean? It gets hard. You have to, the less strings you have, the more you have to be a little bit more creative about what you do, I think.
There's a quote from Alfred Hitchcock that I love that is something along the lines of, the worst enemy of cinema is the lack of limitation.
Dude, it's like the tyranny of choice. That's what I call it. The tyranny of choice. Like when I was a kid, I remember taking bass lessons. The first bass teacher I had was this guy named David. I don't know why. I always remember his name. He went to Tulane. I only was with him for a couple of weeks. And then I took lessons with Walter Payton, Nicholas Payton's dad. And I don't think he liked me very much because I wasn't as serious as I thought I was. But if any one of these people asked me, what are you into? At that time, as a teenager, I was into Prince.
Yeah.
And I was into funk. I was into funk, But I was particularly into Prince and the Minneapolis Sound.
Okay.
You know, because I was 15 at the height. The absolute pinnacle of Prince's fame.
You and I are the same age.
Yeah. So
which is like 27, 28.
Exactly.
But
30 on a really bad day. But so nowadays, if I get a private bass student, I ask them what they're into.
Yeah.
And they can't really tell me because there's so much stuff to listen to. It's just like everything is right there. Like, dude, you guys don't have to go on the quest. For us, it was a quest.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It was
like
seek
it out.
You had to seek out the music, and then, you know, if somebody had like, oh my God, when I discovered the Prince bootleg, the bootleg, because I thought, I know every record. He only had 6 at the time.
Right.
I know all of his records, and then somebody had a bootleg. I'm like, oh shit!
Say what?
What's this? I used to go down to this place in the French Quarter, Rock and Roll Collectibles. Now, I didn't grow up very far from the French Quarter, but I still had to walk. You know, and there was a guy named Dick who owned Rock and Roll Collectibles. And at one time, I would go and I would pay this dude $30 for a cassette. Not a first run of the cassette.
Right.
I'm
generations
deep. Generations deep, man. When you go back and all you hear is... You feel what I'm saying?
Like it was recorded, tape recorder to tape recorder in the back of a Volkswagen.
Yeah, man.
With the engine running.
Or like here's a boom box and here's a boom box. Put them next to each other like that. But that was the quest. That was the quest, man. So I think, shit. I think I was at my most creative when all I had was like a boss pedal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you had to make it happen.
You had to do something with that, man. You had to figure out, and whatever that was informed your style at the time, because that's what you had. You know what I mean? That informed a bit of how you told your story. You know what I'm saying? And then when you get all the computer stuff, I remember the first generation of Reason that I had. Like, I'm just sitting at this thing, and I'd spend a week going through all the sounds. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. And I guess there's a type of personality for that, and a space for that. But if your thing is to tell stories, and if you can identify, I want this, I need to hear something that sounds like this, then you can go for it.
I had a Chinese drum set. It was the ROC, was the brand. Had this snare drum that only sounded good if you leaned in on that rim. And it really taught me very quickly but you better put that backbeat on that rim.
Yes, sir.
Again, that's one of the obvious lessons. But the tyranny of choice is something that I think a lot of young musicians who have gotten to a place where maybe they've had less limitation and then they've pared back. Yeah. Guys who are maybe our age who have understood that being shaped in that kind of limitation did something to you.
Well, and I don't knock them. It's easy to fall into that thing, back in my day, Yeah. But, like at my school, man, I work at a charter school. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So we got charter school limitations. So we got these basic Yamaha keyboards, you know what I mean? Drums that need tuning, and the kids, they get mad when I don't bring my bass, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because my bass players, I let them play my bass, and then when they got to play the school bass, they get mad.
Yeah.
But, I say we will pick repertoire that we can pull off successfully with what we have.
On any instrument.
On any instrument, because that's what I need you to understand. That's what I'm here to teach you. Mm-hmm.
It's not the instrument.
It's the music, man. And how do we figure out the music? How do we work as an ensemble? And the best thing I can give any student, any person that finds value in whatever I do is my process. I could, I'll show somebody how I figure out a song. And I say, this is how I've been figuring out songs pretty much since I was 13. You know what I mean?
I want to touch on the fact that between the ages of 13 and your mid-30s, you had yet to really formalize your music education.
How you know that,
man? I try to be up on who I'm going to talk to.
Boy, you done went up in my dossier. Man. My dossier. I've never used the word dossier.
So you, at some point, had to make a decision. Like, I've gone as far as I can go.
I'm going to tell you right now, bruh. I'm going to tell you. It was another crossroads, and it came to. And I I was playing with this wonderful singer named Nia Jade, still a good friend of mine. And she was taking us back and forth to New York, and we were traveling and stuff like that. And one time she asked me to be the MD for this band, and everybody, it's New York, so everybody in the band got a gig. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they got gigs. Yeah. Beyonce, Michael Bolton,
everybody in the band probably could MD too.
Right. And I didn't know what a B-flat diminished chord was. I didn't know how to just immediately access it on my instrument. And the keyboard player talked to me in such a way, man, that I was just like, I was prideful. And I was like, man, I never let anybody talk to me like that again. I actually slipped and fell accidentally into music education. But I just said, look, I'm bullshitting, and whatever I think are good looks and charm are not going to last forever. There's a ceiling there, and I had to realize that at some point that I was more flash than substance.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Just calling it what it is, man. I was just more flash than substance. And but I knew that, I knew I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. So I wound up going to Chabot at first because I thought I could get like cheap bass lessons or whatever. You know what I mean? I slipped and fell, and somehow, the program didn't, they didn't really recognize electric bass, so I was playing upright bass. I had never touched, even growing up in New Orleans, I'd never played upright bass and didn't really have an interest in it. Played upright bass, got an AA there, but at that point, I got excited about learning again. And I wanted to go further. I wanted to get a bachelor's in music, and so I transferred from there. I wound up getting a degree playing classical double bass.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I suck at it. I mean, you got to work your ass off to be a mediocre double bass player.
Yeah.
But there's a whole nother.
Shit, you got to work your ass off to get the instrument to the gig.
Right. But I got opened up to a whole lot of other stuff, man. And then the notion that all music is one music. All music is one music.
There's two musics. There's the good kind.
Well, that's a whole nother trip. But everything has groove.
Yeah.
Everything has a groove. Everything. There's a story in everything. Whether you like the story or the story's good or bad or whatever, that's all on you. But it just opened my ears up to some other stuff. And then from there, I fell into playing musical theater, which was a whole nother trip. Playing in an orchestra. You know what I mean? With following a conductor.
Wow.
That whole thing. So.
Well, talk about that for a moment. When you have a conductor there, how is the conductor, and I know there are many more moving parts in an orchestra, but how is the conductor different from your role as musical director?
That's a good question. Well, the conductor's got the stick, man. They got the stick, and they're driving the bus. So one big difference that comes to mind is, when you're playing on stage with a singer in a casual or whatever, your job is to follow the singer, whatever they do. You follow to make them look good. Well, when you're in a pit, if the conductor's got the stick and the singer on stage messes up, doesn't matter.
That's on the singer.
The guy with the stick is the boss. That stick is king. You know what I mean? And it's a different trip, man. People if people forget lines, or if you have to, vamp a certain place, and reading the little dots on the page, is a whole different kind of trip. And that is also not as complicated as folks might think it is. You know what I mean? But learning how to read music. I don't mean really read music, and really understand music. I don't feel like there's any, music theory is good for when you want to talk about music and communicate music, communicate about music. And some people think that you somehow lose your soul, and that's so incredibly ridiculous to me, because so when I need to go in and talk to my guys about music, I'm not going to go in there, No, I'm going to go in there and say, at measure such and such and such, I want this chord or this color because, this is what I know I want to create. You know what I mean? So, going through that whole trip, help me to be a more well-rounded musician. And again, if I wanted to be serious and do this for the rest of my life, I mean, there's guys that seem to come out of the womb and they're just like uber talented, and then there are guys that have to, and they can just kind of do and survive. Me, I feel like I got to work my ass off, and I got to always find ways to make myself useful, which brings us back to sideman, which I love. Artist, which I don't know. I know that I want to tell my story, but I know that when I'm doing this, I'm at the mercy of other people, man.
Yeah,
always.
Just being sideman.
I'm always at the mercy of other
Our
people.
listeners can't see what you just did, but what you're communicating is that you have cultivated a career helping people tell a story.
Yeah.
And it's time for the emergence of your story.
And when they get tired of telling, for whatever reason, when they get done with their thing, or when their thing is not working anymore, and some people, I've worked with artists, man, that I've worked with, and I was making good money and doing this or that, and when they got tired, they were just like, I don't want to do this anymore, or whatever. That's over.
Yeah.
That's over. It was nice, but that's over. When you're a kid, you think, I want to be a superstar. I want to be this. I want to be that. I want to be a part of telling good, honest stories through music. And I want to tell my own story as well. And I can, this is me. I could do that all day, man. I'll do that behind somebody all day.
Yeah.
I love that. I do it with Dale anytime he calls. I do it with Rich, Leah, anybody, anytime they call. You know what I mean? But I also want to have the capacity, the ability to do my own, I just want to create, man. I want to create when they put me in the ground. Hey.
That's Blyss, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, man.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it, man.